All right, so if you guys are just coming in, this is How to Trade Volume Profile Part 4. This is a 5-part series. If you guys haven't already, if you're watching the VOD, go back and watch Part 1 through 3. Also go back and watch the How to Trade Volume Profile video. After today, we will have our final part tomorrow on Friday. And then once all 5 parts are done, I'm going to go through and cut them up so they're a lot more streamlined. I'll get rid of all the dead space in the beginning and the dead space throughout the video. So make sure if you guys like this kind of content, hit that like button, subscribe on YouTube. But let's get started. So today's topic is going to be on how to use the previous profiles in your analysis moving forward with live data, right? So as we talked about throughout part 1 through 3, it's pretty much the same thing where you're looking for the value area high, the value area low, the POCs. Those are all the very important levels that we're going to be using throughout this analysis as well. So for today's video, I'm going to be using the S&P 500 futures, which is known as ES, and then I'm also going to be going over the Nasdaq futures as well. So what I like to do when I'm using these futures is I like to use the 30-minute time frame because they run almost 24/7. Not exactly. There is some downtime. They are closed on Saturday as well. They open back up on Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern. So there is some downtime, but they have a lot more data than the SPY and the Q's ETFs. So if you use a 5-minute time frame, you're going to have a lot of candles. So typically, sorry, let me get rid of this. Typically, if you break it down to a 30-minute, the profile is going to be a lot cleaner. It has a much better profile. It's a lot easier to read. The levels are a lot more accurate as well. So what we're going to start off with is, so today's profile, as we can see here, we're going to go to the previous day to find the very important levels. So we have the value area high, the value area low, and then we have the POC, okay? I'm also going to replay this so we can pretend bar replay isn't available. Oh no. This is going to make my video a little harder. This is going to be difficult if they're not going to let me bar replay. Okay, we're going to have to improvise on this. Sorry about that, guys. It's not going to let me bar replay on ES. So let's do it this way. We are just going to do it the old-fashioned way. So we're going to use the fixed range profile tool to pretend like we are looking at the current day's profile, okay? So if we take the first hour, let's grab the first hour of this. So it starts at 1800. We're going to go to 1900. So it's only 2 candles. It's going to be pretty short, right? That's going to be our initial balance of today's pre-market session. Okay, and this might seem a little ridiculous because it's so small, but I'll go over how to use this. So let me color code this. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to break this up into sections, but we're going to go over it point by point so it makes sense. So this would be the initial balance of the pre-market session. Okay. This is when it opened last night at 6 p.m. Eastern. Okay, so you opened up and you had a pretty neutral initial balance, but then you started to sell off. Okay, so the pre-market session started to be quite bearish because of 2 things. Not only did you lose the initial balance of the pre-market session, but you also lost the value area low of the previous session. Okay. So you want to be making lines on these value areas of the previous session so you can see how your current price action is reacting to those levels. So if this started to bounce, like if this pre-market session opened up and then we started to bounce like this, that would be a pretty bullish pre-market session because we are staying within our value area of the previous day and we're using it as support. Okay, but we did not do that. We broke that value area low, also breaking the initial balance. So those are 2 signs that it's quite bearish. Then we started to find a little bit of support. And it kind of found support basically in the middle of nowhere here if we're only looking at the previous day. Okay, so let me get rid of these. But if we go back another day and we grab the levels again, let me color code these black so we don't get lost. And then we also have a very strong node right here. Now do you see where we're bouncing? So this is how you can use your previous day's volume profile to find very key levels during your live session. Okay, so we were losing. I know my chart is very messy. You guys are just going to have to kind of put up with that because that's just how this trading really is. But once we break the value area low, once we broke the initial balance, we're kind of asking ourselves, where is price going to go? We know that price is bearish, but where is price going to target? Where is it going to bounce? So then we have to take our previous levels to find key points that are going to act as support. So we already lost the POC. We already lost the value area low. There is no node on this day. So this day has no support. Our previous day is not giving us any support to base our support off of. But the day before that is giving us a very key node here, and then we have a value area low as well. So if price did not bounce here, you would be targeting that value area low. If it did not bounce off that value area low, then really the only thing left is to target that session low there. Now obviously you could just keep going farther back and finding more levels, but I'm not going to keep doing that for this video. I'm going to try to keep it streamlined. But yeah, so if we lost this, we would be looking for the value area low. If we lost that, we would be looking for the session low. Okay, and then let's just pretend like there's nothing below that. Okay, so now we're bouncing off that support node. So let me go ahead and grab the profile again. So let's pretend like we're live trading this bounce. Let me get rid of the initial balance because that doesn't really matter anymore. That's only going to help us in the very beginning of the session. So now we're looking at our current profile that looks like this. So the current profile is kind of bullish. So pretend like we can't see anything after this profile, right? So our price is down here, but the profile is actually slightly bullish because we do have the POC towards the high of the day. Okay, so the POC is towards the high of the day. We're getting a little bit of a support node below us, and then we're reclaiming our value area low. Okay, so let's mark out the value area low here. We'll make this blue. So there's our value area low, there's our value area high, and there is our current POC. Okay, so now that we are bouncing off support, we know that we're slightly bullish. So we're slightly bullish, but where is our entries going to be? If you go back and watch my part 1 through 3, we've gone over these entries many times. You either have the supports that are well outside your value area low, or you have the retrace of the value area low. Okay, so you could have entered on this little support node here. You could have entered on the value area low down here as well, or you could have waited for the retrace, which we saw there. Okay, so that also gave you a bullish entry. So once you have that bullish entry, once again, what are we targeting? We're targeting the POC, which is here, and we're targeting the value area high, which is there. Okay, so both those targets were hit. Okay, so let's move forward here. I know, once again, my chart is very messy. Just try to keep up. So now this is our new profile. So our value area low is shifted down a little bit. Our POC is here now. And then our value area high is shifted down a little bit. Okay. So once again, pretend like we can't see anything after this profile. I wish I could use bar replay, but it's not going to let me. This video is just going to have to be like this. But okay, so now pretend like price is here. What are we seeing price do? We are hitting the value area high of our previous session and the value area high of the session before that. So these are very key resistance zones, right? The black line and the red line. These are both very key resistance levels. So if we were very bullish, we would need price to break through those resistance areas to see a breakout higher. Okay. Another thing that we would like to see is we want to see price retest those areas as support. Because what is the simplest thing in trading? If resistance is broken and then retested as support, that is bullish. Okay? So we want to see either a break through those levels or we want to see a breakthrough and a retest. All right? So right now we're pretending like price is here. So let's push it forward a little bit. We're going to push forward our profile a little bit. Okay, so now what are we seeing? We're seeing the POC shifted higher. That's quite bullish. That kind of gives you like an indication that this little bear trap here has completely played out and the bulls are now in control. The volume is shifting higher, so people are finding value at a higher price. That is very bullish, right? But now we still have to pay attention to how price is reacting to those key levels that we've marked out. We're still failing those levels. There is no indication that we are breaking those levels or we're using them as support. The only level that we have shifted into support is the previous day's POC, which is this line here, this red line here. And let me actually mark these out a little better because I know this is very messy. Let's make these a little thicker here. Okay, so you see how price is kind of flipping this level here? I'm going to get rid of this profile for a second. You see how price is beginning to flip that level? So that is key support being found on a previous day's POC. So that is one of your first major signs that this wanted to push higher, because you are using the highest node of yesterday as support. We're no longer rejecting that area. Okay. The next sign that this clearly wanted to go higher was the break and retest of the value area high. Okay. So that level there. Let me bring back our profile. You see how we start to build a lot of value up here? So it's building a lot of value. We have shifted our value area high there. We've shifted our value area low there. And then we've shifted our POC right there. Okay. So we have completely shifted our value towards the high side. And we're finding a lot of value towards this value area high of yesterday. And actually even above that high. Okay. So once we start to break yesterday's value area high, that is a very key breakout point. Now, it could also be a selling opportunity if, like we went over in the previous videos, if it gave you that retrace, right? So if we tried to break yesterday's value area high and then you clearly rejected back inside of it, that would give you a key selling opportunity. It doesn't do that though, unless you consider this little sell-off here. Let me remove the profile again. Unless you consider this sell-off here a retrace, it wasn't really. You only closed outside of it for one tiny little candle and then came back inside of it. So that would be just kind of a rejection. That's not really a retrace. For a retrace, you're kind of looking for a bigger move outside and then a retrace back inside. But that's more of just a rejection. But okay, so we don't really get a short opportunity here. Unless you're shorting the test of that level, you don't really get that retrace that we're looking for. So there's no real short opportunity there unless you're being extremely aggressive. But it does give you a buying opportunity on the breakout. So the key thing to look for here is we don't really have any resistance nodes above our previous day's value area high, right? So kind of like down here, we have this like support node right here. You see the support node below the value area low? So if we had something like that up here, then we would want to pay attention to that as resistance, but we don't have that. Okay? So there's nothing in our way from yesterday's price action, but If we do go back another day, there is a little bit of resistance up here on these nodes. You see these nodes right here? We've got that node, and then we have a very small node kind of right there. And then obviously if you go back further, you can find more. But like I said, I'm trying to streamline this, so we're only going to use the previous 2 days. So if we use these 2 days here, there's no resistance here. There's a little bit of resistance there, a little bit there, nothing above that. Okay, so what does that tell us? That tells us that on our current day, if we break out of these 2 zones, there's nothing in our way. This is very bullish, right? Okay, so let's look at our live price action and see what we're doing. So once again, we're going to grab our profile. Let's just bring it to like there. Okay, so we're seeing a massive breakout, and this is a very strong breakout because look at the volume that it's finding up here. It's finding a lot of volume on that breakout point, and this is the open of the live session, the current session, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Okay, so you're typically going to see a spike in volume on the open of the session. Okay, so you want to pay attention to that. But all right, so we have the breakout of those resistance levels, and then what do we do after that? Let me get rid of this one more time. Do you see how clear this is? Do you see the retest of that level? So what did I say earlier? Very, very basics of trading. When you break resistance, it becomes support. So now that we've broken these resistance nodes, they are acting as support. So that actually gave you a pretty strong buying opportunity if you used your previous day's information. Okay? So that gave you a little buying opportunity, and then we saw a spike off of that. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's move forward with our live data. Okay, so now what are we seeing? Once again, we're constantly shifting the POC higher. And let me actually do it this way so I can show you how clear this is. Let's turn on the developing POC. Okay, so you see this red line here? Let me make this thicker. Do you see our developing POC? Make that a different color. You see how we're constantly just shifting higher, shifting higher, shifting higher, shifting higher. That shows us that our profile is finding value at these higher prices. People are paying more for the S&P 500. Okay, they are finding more value as the S&P 500 goes up in value, goes up in price, I should say. Okay, so let's turn that off for now. And let's go back to our current profile. Okay, so we're shifting our POC higher. We're also shifting our value area high, our POC, and then our value area low. Okay, so this is our current value area, the blue lines. And then we have no really prevalent gaps. We've got a little gap there, but nothing too crazy about that. We have a little gap there, also not very prominent. But then we do have a big support node here. I'm not going to mark that out because there's a lot of levels there already. So we already know that is support. We do have a little gap right there that we could mark out. But just for the sake of the chart, I'm just not going to do that. So those are all of our key levels, right? And then we have a long tail here. So not a whole lot of value being found towards the low of the day. All right, so that's how you read the current profile. So how do we look for trades on this current profile? Same thing as we've been going over throughout the series. We have the break and retrace of the value area high. That would give you a short. We have the break and retrace of the value area low. That would give you a long. We have the support test outside of the value area, so somewhere around here. That would give you a long as well. And then you have obviously a resistance test somewhere outside the value area high. Now, one thing to note, you want to be careful selling the highs on this profile. Do you guys know why? Why do I say you should be careful selling the highs on a profile that looks like this? This is a capital P shaped profile. A capital P shaped profile is a bullish imbalance. It means the bulls are stronger than the bears. So on profiles like this, you want to be careful selling the highs because it is very likely going to break out higher. You are safe to buy the lows because today is very bullish. So it's basically like following the trend, right? So if it's a capital P shape, following the trend would tell you to buy the lows, but be careful selling the highs. You can still sell the highs, but you have to be very careful. You don't want to be very aggressive and put a lot of size into selling the highs because it's very risky. Now, obviously, it could pay off sometimes, like, say, right here. If you would have sold the failure of the value area high, you could have made a nice little scalp here. But if we're talking about a probabilities game, you have a lower probability chance of being right if you're selling a P-shaped profile. Okay? So let me catch up to live time, and then I'll go over some questions. Okay, so I actually don't need this because we have the live profile right here. Okay, so our live profile, we have the value area high, we have the POC, and then we have the value area low. Okay, so do you notice how close the POC is to the value area high? That tells you that there's a lot of volume up here. Now, there is another side to this coin. The side of the coin that I told you about earlier, the capital P, you want to be you want to be careful selling the highs because it is bullish. There's another side to that, which is because it's P-shaped, most of the volume is towards the high, right? So what does that mean if we start to sell off like this? If we start to sell off like this, that means that most of the volume is now acting as resistance. Okay, so there is a reversal technique that you can use when P shapes or lowercase b shapes do begin to fail. So if you are a reversal trader, you can look for those types of trades. Now, there's not a whole lot on the volume profile itself that can give you those great entries. It's mainly just reading candlesticks and kind of how the actual volume is coming in. So like if I were to turn on regular volume here, what would be very indicative that would tell you to kind of sell the highs here is if you had like a gravestone doji or like a shooting star doji or like any kind of obviously bearish candlestick with good volume, then you could start to reversal trade the capital P shape or the lowercase b shape. Does that make sense? So like if you had dragonfly candles down here with very high volume, you could start to reversal trade those profiles. But if you don't see those reversal candlestick patterns with good volume, you should not try to reversal trade the imbalances. Okay, does that make sense? So like right here, this doesn't really give you a very good signal that this is going to top out. It kind of just did. So like this would be hindsight if I told you, oh yeah, you could have sold here, easiest trade of your life. That's hindsight. This doesn't really give you an indication that this was going to top out here. Because it did the same thing 3 times in a row. You went up, you sold off, you went up again, you sold off, you went up again, you sold off. So those selling candles there are not really scary because all of them have low volume, except for this one. This one has pretty strong volume. You can see the volume down here. That one has pretty decent volume. So if anything, you would have shorted that candle, not these candles, because these candles don't really have strong volume. Okay, so don't lie to yourself and say like, okay, I would have shorted that, because really, it's not that obvious. The only thing that really could have showed you that was the loss of the POC. So like you tried to bounce outside the POC, and then you lost it. So maybe you could have shorted that, but still not the greatest signal. But okay, let me move on. So the only time you want to reversal trade those is if you're getting very strong reversal candles with good volume. Okay. But all right, so now we're seeing this profile. We have all this support down here from our previous profiles. So we have all this value. We have all this value. So we know that today is pretty bullish. We broke out of the value that we've been in the past 2 days, and now we are trading above it. And any kind of pullback into that area would be kind of a buy the dip scenario, as long as it still used those levels as support. Okay, that is one of the best continuation patterns you can get, is if you're breaking away from value and then you're pulling back to retest that value. Like if it did like a falling wedge here and it came down to that value, that would be a pretty good buying opportunity. Okay. So watch for those continuation patterns where we break out of value and then come back to retest it. The same goes for the downside. Like if I inverted this and we broke away from value and then we came back to retest it like this, that would also be a shorting opportunity, as long as you're holding outside of that value. If you retrace inside of the value, then it's very bad. And you could very likely go for that 80% trade that we talked about in, what was it, part 3? So like if you came back and failed this value area high, you have an 80% chance that you'll go down to the value area low. Okay, so you got to watch out for that. All right, let me catch up on some questions before I move forward. Sorry, I haven't been reading chat, guys. Zane said, is that a custom indicator? I'm using the volume profile indicator on TradingView. Just the built-in one. I'm using session volume, and then I just have it color-coded the way that I like. I'm using 100 row size, 70 for the area, and then these are my color settings. Let's see. Dom said, is in the first hour of ES, you mentioned POC being toward the high of the day as being bullish. At that point, is it not just seen as significant resistance? So if you're in a P-shaped profile right at the start of the day and your POC is towards the high, that is bullish. But if you do something kind of like this, where you start to pull away from that profile very early, then that would be like a bearish reversal. Okay, so you have a bullish day, but it's a bearish reversal, if that makes sense. You can still have bearish price action on a bullish day. Okay, let me catch up. Let's see. Don't you use vertical volume? Yeah, you can use vertical volume as well. I'm just not going over vertical volume in this series. This is specifically on volume profile. Let's see. Yeah, Dom. So same answer to your second question as well. It's a bearish pullback of a bullish day. Nas said, in a P-shaped profile with a small volume at the tail, is it possible for the price to come back down to it from the value area? Yes, it's possible for sure. So the kind of days that you'll see that is, let me delete all this so we can go over this. The kind of days that you'll see that, so like today has a P-shaped profile. We have most, let me redraw that, sorry. We have most of the volume towards the high. You're asking, can it come down and fill in the lower section? Yes. So if we're constantly seeing a rejection of the high, which we're currently seeing right now, so like let's say this came back up and then we started to reject again, then most likely we're going to come down and fill in the profile. Because what did I tell you guys in part 2 and 3? When you have a P shape or any shape really, a B shape or a capital B, you always have to think about, it wants to be like this. It wants to be balanced. So what does it have to do to balance itself out? In a P shape, it would have to come down and fill in the profile. In a capital B, it would have to either come down or go up, depending on where it is, to fill in the middle. Right? And then in a lowercase b, it would have to go up to fill in the profile here. So there are different techniques on how to trade these days. For the most part, I'm teaching you guys the continuation techniques. There are also reversal techniques, like I was just going over. So if you want to trade the reversal techniques, you would have to do what I said earlier. You would have to look for the volume. You would have to watch the reversal candlesticks, and then you would look for the pullbacks that would create a balanced profile. If you're a continuation trader, you ignore the reversal techniques, and you're only watching for those continuation patterns. Okay. And for the most part, I would say the continuations play out more than the reversals, especially on the indexes, because the indexes perpetually want to go higher, right? Okay, I kind of got off track there. Let me see if I answered your question. You said in a P-shaped profile with small volume at the tail, is it possible? Yeah. So yeah, we answered that. So yes, it can come down. You'll just have to look for those reversal patterns. Norman said, do you use the extended hours on your chart? No, I do not. The only time I'm looking at extended hours is if I'm watching an earnings play out, or if I am using ES and Nasdaq. They have the extended hours built into their price action. Young African said, is there a way to combine the profiles like those previous 2 days, for example? Yes, you can combine them. And that's actually a very good point. Actually, thank you for bringing that up. So I've actually done this on stream a lot. So when we have overlapping profiles, so you see how these profiles are overlapping for the most part? They're almost all in the same area. What you can do is you can grab your fixed range tool on TradingView, and we can make this all one profile. So let's grab these 4 days. And that gives us that profile of that entire range. So instead of grabbing all the important levels of each day, you could combine them and grab the important levels of the entire range. The only time I recommend doing this is if you're trading on a longer time frame. So like if you're not looking for these like intraday scalps and you're looking for more of a bigger breakout for like months in advance, you know what I mean? Like you're looking for 2 months out, 3 months out, whatever, longer time frames, then you can do stuff like that. Okay, so if we do something like that, this day starts to look very bullish, right? Because we are breaking out of 3 days worth of value. Or sorry, 4 days. So 4 days worth of value is being found right here. So if we're breaking out of 4 days worth of value, that's pretty bullish. If we pull back to retest that range and we start to bounce off of that, that's extremely bullish. Okay? And if we start to lose that value, so if we start to come down and then we lose that area, that's very bearish. We're probably going to retrace back down to the previous levels. Okay? That's actually a very good point. Thank you once again for bringing that up. And I don't want to talk about Bitcoin just yet, but I want to use this as an example because that's a very good technique. Let me pull up Bitcoin really fast, and then we'll come back. So a great example of that is, let me delete all this. A great example of that is, you see how Bitcoin is just constantly accumulating, it's ranging for so many days. What we could do here is, let's say we were seeing this double bottom play out, and we're like, okay, where is our key levels? We could grab a profile of this entire double bottom. So like we could start from this low here, and then we could pull the profile all the way to here, and this gives us this beautiful profile of this entire nasty accumulation. Okay, so let me go to the daily and you'll see kind of what I'm doing. So you see this entire area right here? Now we have a profile of that entire area. Okay, so let's go back down to the 1 hour. So this gives us this beautiful profile here. So let's pretend like price is, I'll do a replay function. Let's see if it lets me. Okay, there we go. All right, so we have the profile of this entire accumulation. So you're using the same exact techniques that we've gone over for intraday trading. So we have the value area low, we have the value area high, and we have the POC. And then we could mark out the nodes, but because this is perfectly balanced, there's no need to mark out the nodes. You know what I mean? Like this is just a perfectly, oops. This is a perfectly balanced profile. There's really no need to mark out these nodes. The only node that is breaking the balance is this major node right here. And then we have kind of another one like right here. Everything else is pretty much perfect. Okay, so let's let this play a little bit. Okay, so what does this start to do? What did I tell you guys? If you break back into a value area low after you were previously trading below it, you have an 80% chance to traverse the entire value area. Okay? So once this started to reclaim this level here, we had an 80% chance to get to 35,000. Let's see if that trade fulfills itself, which we already know it does, but let's just play it out anyway. You see how beautifully these levels are acting? Let me zoom in. You have the bounce off the value area low there, acting as clear support. We have the rejections of the POC, acting as clear resistance. And let's see what it does when it breaks the POC. Boom. Breaks the POC massively. And then you almost get it. Let's see. Then you get it. Okay. Then you get your trade. Yeah, Bronx, I know. I wish I would have gone over this a week ago. But do you guys see how you could have used that? And I know this looks like hindsight, but like I always tell you guys, the profile ends right... Oops, I don't need a calculator. The profile ends right here. So everything after that line is tradable information. This is not hindsight. Everything after this profile that we have taken is tradable information. Okay? So once you reclaim that value area low, you're looking for the value area high, you're looking for the POC. And I've actually gone over more techniques with this. If you guys want to learn more about kind of how to use that for ranges, watch my How to Trade Accumulation Distribution Part 2. My Part 2 video, I go over exactly what we just did here. Because this is accumulation. You're accumulating. This is an accumulation technique. You grab the volume profile of the entire accumulation, and it gives you the key levels that you have to reclaim or retest, whatever, right? Okay, so let's go back to ES here before we get out of hand. Okay, actually we were done with ES. Let's move on to Nasdaq. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on Nasdaq that we just did on ES, but I'm going to do it a lot faster because I've already covered it. So this is just going to be like a little recap. All right. Is it going to let me replay on this? No, it's not. Awesome. Okay. So we're going to have to do it the bootleg way. Okay, so once again, let's take the first hour of the day. This is only just for the beginning. Obviously, this is not very important for like the entire day. It's just important in the very beginning of the pre-market session. And this is only if you're trading the pre-market session. If you're not trading the pre-market session, you don't have to do this. Okay, there's the value area high, there's value area low. Let me color code these properly. So for today's color, we're using blue. And then we have the POC. Okay, let's get rid of that. All right, so we have our initial balance is basically just neutral, nothing really happening, just going sideways. Nothing very important just yet. So let's just pretend like today just opened. We're going to go back. We're going to grab our previous days. So once again, let's color code these so we don't get lost. That's our previous day. And let's grab one more day just for some more information. And we're going to make these black. All right, so already our chart's very messy. That's okay. So what happens at the start of the day? Just accumulating, nothing really happening. But then we lose the initial balance low, and then we lose not only the value area low of the previous day, but we lose the value area high of the day before that. Okay, so that's very bad. Now, if this were to continue to use this as resistance and find value below that level, you have a very high chance of going all the way back down to the other side of that value area. Okay, so we almost do that. So this could have faked you out a little bit. You might have shorted this and then lost that trade because it does start to kind of use that as resistance. So if you were trading the pre-market session here, you might have shorted that and then you would have got stopped out for a small loss. That's okay. You're not going to win every trade, right? So you might have shorted that and you would have got stopped out for a small loss. But all right, so we had that happen. Let's grab our profile. So now that we are starting to reclaim, actually, let me go back a little bit. So actually here, you might not have shorted this. Let's go back to here. Okay, you might not have shorted that because most of your volume is still towards the high. So you're still in a bullish profile. So the bullish profile might have scared you away from shorting that. But either way, you would have got stopped out for a pretty small loss. So let's let it play out a little bit. Okay, so our volume is still towards the high. We have reclaimed our previous day's value area low. So this thick red line here, you see the thick red line? I know it's hard to see with all the mess. But we did lose that line, and then we retraced back inside of it. So once again, we've gone over this on every single one of these videos. That is a bullish trigger. You lost the value area low, but then you reclaimed it. So bullish trigger there with a beautiful candle, by the way. The candle is very clean. So that's a bullish trigger. And then what are we doing? We're targeting the POC. We're targeting the value area high. Now, here's where it gets a little funny. Because you're using the value area low of the previous day as your trigger, you can use the POC and the value area high as your targets. Does that make sense? So instead of targeting today's profile, you can target the previous day because that's the one that's triggering the trade. All right. So you can use this POC and then this value area high as your targets. Now, if you're going for a smaller trade, like a scalp trade, you can use today's profile. So if we took today's profile, it wouldn't really give you that much of a target. So you probably would have ignored that and then used the previous day. Because if you're using today, your POC is here, which you've already hit. And then your value area high is right here. And that's only going to give you a 5-point trade. That's not really big enough. So you probably would have ignored today's profile and you would have only used the previous day's profile. Okay? So once again, like I went over yesterday, a lot of these things are going to be intuition. You're just going to have to learn as you do it. It's not, I can't really teach you exactly what to do in every single scenario. You're just going to learn what's good and what's bad. But okay, so that would have been better to target the previous day's POC and the previous day's value area high because they were giving you a better risk to reward. All right, so let's keep going. So yes, you hit your POC target. You have not hit your value area high target, and then you start to sell off. So once you start to sell off here and you start to lose the POC, I probably would have closed this trade if I was still holding it. So we would have missed out on our final target just because it's just showing a lot of weakness. And I'm more of a conservative trader, so I probably would have closed there. If you're a very aggressive trader, you could say that you've already taken profit. Your entry is very good. So even if it pulls back, you're not really risking a whole lot. So yes, you could go for the final target. That's just not my style of trading. I probably would have got out somewhere around there when it showed weakness. Okay. All right, let's move on. Let me delete the initial balance lines here. We don't need those anymore because we have a profile to use. And let's keep going. Okay, so now right here, what are we seeing? We're seeing a retest of the previous day's value area low and the previous day's value area high. So 2 days ago, we're seeing the value area high retest and then the value area low here. So strong support around that 14,970 area. So what happens when price pulls back to retest that strong support? Basic trading tells you that if it holds, it's bullish, right? You're retesting support. Okay, so you're retesting support here, very strong, bullish reaction, bouncing right off of that. Now, only the aggressive traders would have been getting filled there, because if you're aggressive, you would be getting filled right around the value area low. If you're more of a conservative trader, you would be looking for the supports outside the value area low, like we went over yesterday, right? So that is your level that you would have been looking to get filled on if you're conservative. If you are more aggressive, you would have got filled pretty much perfectly on the value area low. Okay. So if you got filled there, once again, I know it sounds like a broken record, but once again, POC, value area high. Those are your targets, right? So POC, you got hit. There's your target. Value area high, you got hit. There's your target. If you want to be a little bit more greedy, you have the POC of yesterday you could have targeted as well. So you hit that target as well. If you're being extremely greedy, you could have targeted the value area high of your previous day as well. Okay, so all of those could have been targets if you got filled down there. But let's keep playing this out a little by little. Okay, so right here, we start to fail the POC again. So once again, if you're an aggressive trader, yes, you could have shorted that. If you're a conservative trader, probably would not have shorted that because you're in a bullish profile. Actually, excuse me, we are not in a bullish profile anymore. I was looking at this one here. This is a balanced profile. So yes, you could have shorted that because we are fairly balanced. So on a balanced day, you can short the highs and buy the lows. Okay. So yes, you could have shorted the failure of the POC, but it would have been a little risky because you would have been shorting the exact level, and you did not have any kind of resistance above that value area high. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Then we have this massive breakout. So let's actually look at the profile before we break out. So the profile before we break out is perfectly balanced. We have most of the volume towards the middle, POC towards the middle, very low volume going down, very low volume going up. So on balanced days, you're safe to sell the highs, buy the lows. You can look for breakouts, but only if they give you strong retest flipping the level, right? So you most likely would have missed this trade, and that's okay. You're not going to get every single trade. But because today is so balanced, this never gives you a retest. So unless this gave you a perfect retest on maybe a lower time frame, what time is this? 9:30. This is right at the open. Let's go down to a lower time frame. No, there's no retest here. So you most likely would have missed this trade. Unless you're just extremely aggressive and you're buying the breakout, which most of you are probably not going to be doing, you would have missed this trade. And like I said, that's okay. You're not going to get every trade. But okay, so this does not give you a retest, so you're most likely not going to get that trade. So let's keep going. Now we start to see a node start to form. So what do we do when we see nodes? So we're forming a new node here, so we can draw this out and say there is a support or a resistance node forming here. Depends on how price is reacting to it. Let's keep going forward. Okay, so now this node is shifted the POC. So now we have shifted the POC towards the high, and now it's creating a bullish profile, a P-shaped profile. But it's not exactly a P-shaped profile, because if I delete this, what does this look like? Yes, it's a P-shape, but we also have a big node down here. So it's almost more like a capital B than a capital P. The capital P's, they kind of look like they look like this, where they can have some nodes down here, but they're very, very small. Most of the volume is towards the high, and then everything else is very, very low. Okay. So as of right now, when I'm taking this profile, this is more of a B shape than a P shape. And with B shapes, capital B's, the secondary node is if you're bullish or bearish, right? So the first node is on the bottom, The second node is towards the top. That means that we're bullish. Okay. But it leaves that void in the middle that wants to be filled. It wants to be tested. All right. So let's move forward. And now we are caught up to our live data. So let's get rid of this. And let's see what's going on right now. We have our value area high. Let's make this blue. We have our POC. And we have our value area low. Okay. So we have today's profile, or sorry, today's value area, which is here. We have yesterday's value area, which is here. So they're kind of overlapping a little bit. And then we have the day before that, which is way down here. So we're breaking above this day. We're breaking above this day as well, but they're kind of overlapping. So what does that tell us? That tells us that it's trying to break out, but it's just not there yet. There's not enough volume to completely break this out. It's kind of an inside day. If the value areas, I should say, are overlapping, it's an inside day. An outside day would be like if the entire value area was up here and then this value area was down here. The entire value area is outside of this day. So it's an outside day. Okay, those are more, those are stronger, I guess you would say. So today is trying to break out, but it's just not there yet. Okay, so if this stays like this is actually very weak. This is very bearish. Because you are trying to break out at this level here, but we're retracing inside of it. That's actually a nasty candle we're getting right now. Do you guys see why that's happening? Let me delete everything here. Let's only draw out this profile here. Do you guys see what's happening here? What have I been telling you all week? Look for retraces, right? If you retrace the profile, you have an 80% chance of getting to the other side of the profile. So we tried to break out of this profile, could not do it. Retraced back inside of it with that strong continuation candle there. And now look at what we're doing. There's your 80% trade. It's almost there. Is this going to be deleted or will it stay on the channel? It's going to stay on the channel. So once I'm finished with all 5 of these videos, I'm going to cut them up and make them more streamlined. So I'm going to get rid of all the times that I'm like stuttering or when I'm losing my train of thought. We're going to make them cleaner. But yeah, for right now, they're just streams. You can go back and watch the other streams as well. But yeah, so we saw the retrace here. So that is very weak. Now, what are we looking for moving forward? When this profile closes, this new profile, not the old one, when this closes, it's going to give us our levels, right? It's going to give us our high and our low and our POC. So let me delete these older levels. Okay, so tomorrow, when we open up our pre-market session and when we open up our live session, we want to be breaking above these levels to be bullish. If we're bearish, we want to be rejecting these levels, right? If we're very bearish, we want to just be completely away from these levels entirely. So like finding value down here would be very bearish because it's an outside day. This was our value. Now our value is down here, right? So that would be very bearish. So look for those things tomorrow. Look for retests of these levels. Look for breaks of these levels. Or look for value outside of these levels. Okay? I think I have pretty much covered everything that I wanted to cover today. Do you guys have any questions about that? Are you guys starting to... has anybody in here been watching from the beginning? Have you guys watched the entire series? And if you have, are you starting to get better at understanding what I'm saying? Like, is it becoming clear? Are you like, oh, okay, I see where he's getting that level. Oh, okay, I see why he's entering there, why he's exiting there. Like, are you guys getting it? Is it making sense? For sure? Awesome, okay. You are? Okay, good. Because I know I'm getting a little bit like off track sometimes. I know I'm going over a little bit of things that are like complicated. I do all of my videos in one take, if you guys haven't realized. I don't plan anything. I don't write down any notes or anything. I do it all straight from my head, one take. So sometimes I can get a little messy. So hopefully you guys are able to understand my style of teaching. I've tried doing the thing where like I plan out my entire video and I write down notes, and it honestly makes me go off track more than just doing it from my head. Yeah, exactly, Dom. This is how I used to trade Bitcoin. If you guys remember, if you guys are longtime viewers, if you guys have been in the Discord, this is how I used to trade Bitcoin. This with my indicators like the OTS and the Momo. This is why I didn't sleep. Like Sticky can tell you, dude. I have exo charts, layouts that I've built to trade like this, and you don't sleep when you trade like this, especially with Bitcoin that's 24/7. You kind of have to watch for trades all the time. That is the downside to this trading. There's no real way to automate it. You just kind of have to read the chart and be reading it all the time. But all right, guys, do you guys have any final questions? If not, this video is right around where I want it to be. It's right at an hour. So I'm going to be closing it down. Let's see. You said, how can you put all this into a trading plan or system? Because I like to trade AMT and market profile since that's what I understand, but I don't know how to put it all into a system. That's kind of what I'm teaching, man. So if you haven't already, go back and watch part 1, 2, 3. I'm teaching the system. I'm teaching practical examples on how to make this into a system. Like where you're putting your stops, where you're putting your entries, where you're putting your targets, right? That's what I'm teaching. So make sure to go back and watch the videos and take notes. That's how you'll learn, right? And like I said, there's a lot of things that I can't teach you. There's a lot of little things like, okay, it's reacting to this level this way. It's doing this, like it's kind of giving me, it's being a little bullish, being a little bearish. Like there's a lot of little things that you're just gonna have to learn from doing it yourself. There's a lot of intuition that goes into order flow trading, volume profile trading. A lot of it is just gonna come from practice. So all the stuff that like once I finish this series tomorrow, if there's things where like you're like, okay, I didn't really teach you that, it's because I can't teach you that. Right? It's just something you're gonna have to learn. And I guarantee, like, if you guys take everything that I've taught you in these videos and you start applying it to live data, you are going to learn very quickly. And I know I'm gonna have some people who are gonna watch these videos and they're gonna leave ridiculous comments like, "This guy's only hindsight," blah blah blah. Those people I can't help, right? I do this live in Discord almost every single day. So if you're somebody who thinks this is just hindsight, you're more than welcome to join the Discord. But all right, I'm not seeing any other questions. I appreciate all the nice comments, guys. I try not to read them all on stream because I don't want to sound like a pompous ass. But I do appreciate all the nice comments you guys leave in the chat. All right, guys, I don't see any final questions, so I'm going to close it up. I appreciate you guys all being here for our part 4. Make sure you guys come back for part 5 tomorrow. And that'll be our final closing video. There's nothing really new that I'm going to be teaching tomorrow. It's just going to be more practical examples. I'm going to go over SPY, Qs, Bitcoin. What I'll do tomorrow as well is we'll go over normal stocks. So instead of just going over the ETFs, instead of just going over the futures, we'll go over like actual normal stocks, like how to use this on Tesla, how to use this on Apple, stuff like that. So we'll focus on like normal stocks tomorrow. Yeah, same time, 3 p.m. Eastern, guys. But all right, guys, I'm gonna head out. Make sure to hit that like button if you guys like the video. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube. Make sure to follow on Twitch, follow on Twitter. I do stream 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern. And I will see you guys tomorrow for our How to Trade Volume Profile Part 5, which will be our final video of the segment. But all right, guys. You guys have a good one. I'll see you guys tomorrow.